This is crazy. It looks like the Indiana Fever are facing major punishment from the league. That's right. The WNBA could be coming down hard on the Indiana Fever for misrepresentation on the injury report when it comes to Caitlin Clark.
The illusion of total control has officially shattered in Indianapolis. For weeks, the Indiana Fever front office has operated like an untouchable entity, manipulating narratives, exploiting their generational superstar, and treating loyal ticket holders like bottomless revenue streams. But that era of unchecked arrogance just violently collided with reality. The WNBA League office is no longer looking the other way. A severe, unprecedented investigation is underway, and this franchise is facing historic consequences. Today, we are tearing down the walls of the most calculated, high-stakes executive scandal in professional women's basketball. By weaponizing the strict regulations of the WNBA collective bargaining agreement against them, we are exposing the smoking gun evidence that points to deliberate collusion. Head coach Stephanie White and top executives reportedly buried critical updates regarding Caitlin Clark's physical status with a singular, aggressive objective: to protect ticket sales and merchandise revenue at the direct expense of unsuspecting fans. The deceptive web spun during the disastrous Portland game has completely unraveled through conflicting internal records and leaked audio, leaving the league with no choice but to drop a crushing hammer on this toxic organization.
WNBA rules, where it says WNBA injury reporting rules require teams to officially disclose players' availability by 5 p.m. local time on the day before a game. If a player's participation is affected by an injury, illness, medical condition, or rest, teams must designate a participation status and identify the exact reason. And this is what the Indiana Fever failed to do. They did not put Caitlin Clark on an injury report at all, and this is why they may be facing very stern punishment from the league.
The foundational facts of this critical reporting violation are entirely indisputable. Under the strict rules of the WNBA collective bargaining agreement, franchises must submit absolute, finalized player availability statuses to league office by 5 p.m. local time on the day prior to any matchup. This mandate exists to fiercely protect the integrity of sports wagering markets, the financial decisions of consumers buying premium tickets, and the institutional credibility of the league itself. The only exemption applies to back-to-back games, which was not the case for the Portland Fire matchup. Yet, the Indiana Fever deliberately submitted zero injury designations for Caitlin Clark by that strict deadline, only announcing her as unavailable a mere hour before tip-off. This calculated delay ensured that fans were already inside the arena. Tickets were scanned and non-refundable, and massive parking, concession, and merchandise revenues were securely locked in. This financial timeline transforms a simple paperwork error into an aggressive, systematic deception, launching a full-blown league crisis as the front office scrambles to manufacture a post-game narrative that completely falls apart under scrutiny.
This is Indiana Fever reporter Scott Agnes. Fever guard Caitlin Clark will not play tonight versus Portland. I'm told it's part of a strategic management plan for the season. So in that tweet, he said it's part of a strategic management plan. Now, fast forward to this updated story on Caitlin Clark not being in you.
The initial public explanation for Caitlin Clark's absence exposed the entire operation, delivered directly by credentialed beat reporter Scott Agnes, whose sourcing flows straight from the franchise's official communication infrastructure. Agnes reported that the superstar's absence was part of a strategic management plan for the season, a phrase that completely dismantles the front office's defense. A strategic management plan is not an emergency medical reaction. It is, by definition, a premeditated, prospectively developed operational decision engineered long before game day. This proves that the choice to bench Clark was made well in advance by team officials who possess full knowledge of the timeline. Consequently, this reporting failure wasn't a lazy procedural oversight. It was a calculated, aggressive decision to deliberately lock down critical roster information, ensuring the franchise could complete its entire high-volume pre-game revenue cycle before the public ever found out they were buying tickets to an empty stage.
For him tonight, Stephanie White says she found out around 5 p.m. Clark woke up with some soreness, and now look, she's healthy. We're not managing anything. Wait a minute. Before, he just said right here, A strategic management plan.
The entire cover-up completely shattered the moment head coach Stephanie White stepped to the post-game press conference podium, delivering a direct, recorded contradiction that exposed the franchise's deception. When pressed on the absence, White stated on the record that Caitlin Clark simply woke up with soreness, was perfectly healthy, and that the team was not managing anything. This stands in total hostile conflict with the official beat report of a premeditated strategic management plan. Two narratives that cannot logically coexist in the same factual universe. You cannot execute a long-term management plan for an athlete you simultaneously claim is completely healthy and not being managed. One of these statements is an outright lie. By producing both conflicting stories within the exact same news cycle, the Indiana Fever's own communication apparatus handed league investigators an undeniable, self-inflicted paper trail that seals their fate without the league needing to piece together a single shred of external evidence.
So just following up on Caitlin from earlier, she didn't practice yesterday. Why was she not listed on the injury report, or why wasn't the injury report updated like earlier today if she woke up with soreness in her back?
Well, not everybody that doesn't practice or gets a pro day is on the injury report, so that happens all the time. And she wasn't listed on the injury report earlier because we expected her to play.
She did not practice yesterday. Y'all at least knew by the morning she was not playing. Y'all knew by the morning when she said after the workout from yesterday, she still did not feel well at all. Y'all knew the girl wasn't playing. You waited until people already got the tickets, was already walking through the doors to put it out. Stop lying.
The post-game press conference quickly went from a communication failure to an absolute investigative goldmine. When credentialed journalists directly questioned Stephanie White on why Caitlin Clark was omitted from the mandatory injury report despite missing practice, White aggressively dismissed a rule, claiming that players skip practice without formal designations all the time. That defense is a massive self-inflicted wound. If true, it exposes a systematic, ongoing violation of league rules, as the collective bargaining agreement absolutely does not exempt practice absences tied to game day availability. To make matters worse, when pressed for basic medical details regarding Clark's back, White completely deflected, telling media to ask the training staff. A head coach refusing to provide medical specifics for a last-minute scratch, while claiming the player is perfectly healthy, while our own media team calls it a premeditated management plan, isn't just a messy PR strategy. It is a glaring red flag that signals a complete lack of organizational confidence in their own fabricated cover story.
So if there's anything more detailed than that, that's the training staff.
Do you think the Fever could get fined for not listing her as
No.
in the injury report?
No.
Thank you.
Yeah, obviously, AB came back today with.
The definitive moment of this entire executive collapse occurred when a reporter directly asked Stephanie White, on camera and on the record, if she believed the Fever would face WNBA fines for failing to list Caitlin Clark on the injury report. White's dismissive, two-word response, "No, thank you," was an aggressive rejection of professional accountability regarding a documented violation that directly impacts thousands of paying consumers and the league's high-stakes sports wagering partnerships. This wasn't a basketball opinion. It was a public declaration of how little this franchise respects the regulatory power of the league office. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's administration, corporate betting partners, and every compliant franchise across the WNBA watched that footage, transforming a single game reporting failure into a direct challenge to the league's institutional authority. The WNBA office enforces heavy penalties not just as retrospective punishment, but a firmly established rule compliance moving forward. When a head coach publicly signals that league regulations do not apply to her organization, the league must strike back with crushing force to prove its standards are absolute and non-negotiable.
This game versus the Golden State Valkyrie, and this is courtesy of Venom React. Shout out to Venom. Take a look at this real quick before we get into it.
So, Caitlin Clark is already out versus the Golden State Valkyries on Friday. So, something that was just...
This is on the Indiana Fever injury report for Friday.
The Indiana Fever's immediate behavioral pivot provides a final, damning piece of evidence in this escalating executive crisis. Following the chaotic Portland matchup, the front office suddenly listed Caitlin Clark as out for the upcoming game against the Golden State Valkyries well in advance. perfectly mirroring the exact regulatory protocol they had aggressively ignored days prior. This sudden, flawless compliance isn't a coincidence. It is a direct, documentable reaction to intense public scrutiny, completely dismantling any defense that the Portland incident was a harmless procedural oversight. Furthermore, ruling her out days in advance completely shatters Stephanie White's claim that Clark was simply healthy and experiencing minor morning soreness. Back conditions requiring multi-game absences do not align with manufactured narrative of peak physical health. The economic fallout is already hitting the franchise in real time as secondary ticket markets tank, and the immense financial contrast between a Clark-led game and an empty floor becomes glaringly obvious. The Simon family ownership group can no longer sit by passively, while coaching and executive decisions actively damage the most commercially lucrative asset in WNBA history. With explicit collective bargaining agreement violations, contradictory press conference archives, and a blatant on-camera dismissal of league authority, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert's office possesses an airtight case. The league's upcoming ruling will ultimately dictate whether WNBA regulations are absolute or merely optional suggestions when compliance becomes financially inconvenient.